it seems like they're the ones who are
Well,
not taking the time to go out.
it is very, 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 very true. I mean, you don't have to go to Karl Marx or, Plato or Sigmund Freud. You can just take it all the way back to Jesus Christ. People in this community are quite happy and content. It's not that life is all great, but they have their Yahweh to believe in, and they read from the Talmud, and they go to the synagogue every Saturday. Nothing wrong with that. They're doing their best to cope with the misery imposed upon them by the Romans and the emperors. But at the end of the day, for them, suffering is valuable. It's meaningful because it's ultimately Yahweh that brings forth suffering. I mean, consider when Jesus meets Pontius Pilate, and when Pontius tells him that, I have the power to crucify you. Don't you have anything to say to defend yourself? And he says to Pontius that you wouldn't be able to punish me if that power wasn't given to you from above. In other words, nothing down here, takes place accidentally. Everything comes to us because of, to some extent, God's wisdom. He knows what's good for us. We may not know it, but it takes the passage of time for us to realize that. So you have a 12-year-old. Now, I don't really care about how he was born, whether his mom was a virgin, whether in fact it was Yahweh who slept with Mary. I don't know about those things, spiritually, of course. That makes Sarah laugh. So you have a guy who's just a 12-year-old kid who's just not happy. I don't know why he's not happy. He's not happy being with his parents. He becomes really happy when they take him to Jerusalem, and he just walks away from Joseph and Mary, and the parents are worried, sick. They try to look for him, eventually find him, giving sermons to all these older people who are about to die. And they're amazed at how is it possible for this 12-year-old kid to be preaching to these old folks, and they say to this young kid, you could have at least said where you were going. He says, well, you should have known. I mean, this is a 12-year-old. Looks at the parents and says, you guys should have known, that you could find me at my father's house. I mean, what 12-year-old is discontent in such a way, unhappy, miserable with physical life? And then he comes to realize that maybe talking to people is no good, being with his parents is no good. None of this stuff is any good. So he just kind of disappears. It's kind of like people waking up middle of the night, packing their stuff and saying, okay, Mom, Dad, I'm just going to whisper goodbye. And they disappear. And then they come back he comes back after 18 long years. No one knows what exactly he experiences. No one knows where exactly he goes. We have all these assumptions. There's a book called Urantia. It's about 2,000-3,000 pages. It's really, it's a dense book. It talks about where Jesus went, the missing years, the 18 missing years from 12 to 30. How he traveled to Egypt and then Persia and then India, the sort of teachers, the sort of people he hung out with. And so he comes back, and Jesus has a product, like AT&T has a product, Now, how does one sell one's product? Well, if I come home and you say to me that you have these favorite plates, and every night you use them to eat your food from. And I have just bought brand new plates from Costco. Well, the only way I can, and let's just say, you're my husband and you don't want me to spend very much money, and every time I do, you get really upset. So what I have to do to be able to bring this box of plates inside the house As you're eating your food on this plate, you say, there's a crack there, and it's no longer as new and as good looking as it used to be, and it's heavy now, and we're both getting older. And what I'm doing is I'm advertising how miserable these plates are. And hopefully, there will be a crack in your perception, in your relationship with the plates. And the moment there's a crack, you begin to doubt whether or not these plates are actually good anymore. But I can't just stop there. I have to keep attacking. That's what Jesus does. He has a product. It's called maybe the spirit of the law. And he's miserable because the Jews are happy with the letter of the law. Getting married, having children, going to the synagogue, having their jobs. He's the miserable one, who goes out, and because none of the stuff really makes him happy. And he comes back, and the only way he can find relevancy, he can kind of keep his own sanity, is by making people feel bad about who they are, what they are, how they've been looking at religion, their life, their relationship, and the meaning that they have set up for themselves. So what does he say? You guys have been reading the book, the Talmud. It has been giving you promises of this new Messiah. Here I am. Look no further. You've been looking at the letter of the law. I'm trying to tell you that there is a spirit of the law that you've been overlooking for the past many years. The problem with someone like Jesus who is miserable is that it takes so much work to break people psychologically. Those who are happy and content and satisfied with their life. And the older you are, the more difficult it is. If Paula had met her man, say, they've been together for only a week, it wouldn't be very difficult for you to go to her and advertise yourself to her. You guys meet at a coffee shop, she drops her purse, you pick it up, give it to her, you guys begin to chit-chat, and, even without you opening your mouth and talking to her, you are a billboard. The way your face is shaped, the height, the weight, the color of your hair, your skin, everything about you is a piece of advertisement. The next step is for you to open your mouth. Once you open your mouth, there is another layer of advertisement, which is the way you think, the way you feel, the tone of your voice. Now she begins to hear it. And the problem with that advertisement is that this is a new relationship for Paula, which means that she still has enough space within her to entertain another potential relationship. And as you begin to talk to her, she begins to compare you with Bobby. She says, well, Bobby is 90, Toby is 40, okay? It may be that Bobby is rich and Toby is poor, but Toby is rich in youthfulness, in excitement, in dreams, in goals, and this and that. And the more you talk to her, the more she's going to doubt herself in her relationship with Bobby, the old one. And if you're able to kind of create this crack inside her, she's going to say, Toby, listen, why don't we exchange numbers? Once in a while, if you're around, we'll get together. If on the other hand, you run into Paula now, married for 20 years, 4 kids, it's not that you can't, break her relationship with her man and destroy her relationship with her kids. You can't do that. It just takes a hell of a lot longer and more effort on your part, because now you have to deal with shame and guilt and 20 years of psychological narratives, attachments, the sort of way she'll punish herself, the sort of way she'll be punished by the world outside, her husband, her kids, her parents. If she's a religious woman, she'll go to church, and that's another form of punishment. So Jesus can't really go to, say, the Jews who are running the shows, the elders of a community, to crack them open, to create doubt and conflict. So look at his disciples. They're relatively young, and they go to synagogue, but they have a profession on the outside. One is a fisherman, one is a loser, one is a drug dealer, And so he finds people who are young, he finds people who are discontent, and you can kind of, to some extent, recognize those things in people. Let's say, it's evident in the classroom. Someone comes and asks questions versus someone who just sits there like a lump of meat. You are naturally going to kind of gravitate towards those who ask questions, who inquire, who have a look of interest on their face. And so, if Jesus can find his own discontent, reflect back to him in John, in Paul, in Peter, in Matthew, in John, in Jack, in Bobby, in Jillian, all of a sudden he has a following. His discontent becomes meaningful, becomes valuable. It doesn't mean it's true, it just means he has a follower. Paul is doing perfectly well in her relationship, but no relationship is safe. All it takes is someone with charisma, and these days everybody's unhappy, really. Everybody's miserable and discontent. They may not voice it, they may not come out and say, don't you see the sign right on my back? It says, unhappy, miserable, please help. All you have to do is kind of just pay attention to people, the sort of questions they ask, their body language, the way they look at you, or look at, their surrounding. It's not very difficult, and there is also the other fact of life, which is intrinsically, it's a component that just lives in life itself. Life will bore you. How old are you? 19. You haven't really had much life. And just pay attention to what you said at the beginning of the class. I asked you, so Toby, what are you doing? What's going on? Nothing. I go to school like the way I've been going to school for the past 5, 10, 15, 20 years. Then I go to work, the same thing I've been doing for the past 5, 15, 20 years. Then I go see my friends, the same people I've seen for the past 10, 15, 20 years. And the truth is, you can't really extract much excitement and inspiration from the things you've been doing on a routine, day after day after day after day. Consider the movie Groundhog Day with Bill Murray. There comes a point you really become aware. You really become aware that you have been doing the same thing for the past 20 years. And one of the things about awareness and then reflecting on the things you become aware is that the reflection creates a distance, a space between you and your activities. So as you're calling your friends and you're talking to them, there is this tape in the background that says, Toby, yes, you're talking to Bobby. What exactly is Bobby talking about? Nothing. All of a sudden he cracks a joke and you smile and you say, Toby, what are you laughing at? It's really not funny. You're just pretending. And then Bobby says, so you guys want to go see a movie, or want to have lunch or dinner? You say, yeah. But say, well, you've had dinner with these people for the past 20 years, and what has it gotten you? Nothing. But what's the flip side? There isn't really much else to do should you decide not to go out. And as this voice of reflection becomes louder and louder and louder, you become more unhappy and more discontent and more miserable. That's the problem with groundhog. This life being, repetitious. There comes a point you just can't do it. And in the movie, what happens is Bill Murray just kills himself. There isn't much to do in life. It's a very existential way of looking at your own existence. What the hell am I doing? I come to class, I doodle, I sit there, I ask the same questions, I talk about the same things, I talk about my kids, I talk about my husband, my wife, the same issues we talk about in the class. The stuff I talk about today is no different than the stuff I talked about the very first day of the semester. It's all the same. And if you were to kind of look at this, seriously, with a good amount of self-respect and dignity, as well as, bleak humor. It's a horrifying position to be in life. And I think those are the people that someone like Jesus, someone like Marx, someone like Plato, these are the people they're looking for. My father is 90. What can I tell him? There is this story given to us by Jean-Paul Sartre. Existentialism is about living your life through your soul. And if you're not a believer in soul, living your life through what you're passionate about. Let's say it's paint, it's piano. That's how you want to live your life. Not by serving coffee, not by being a waiter, not by working at Home Depot, because they kind of kill your passion and your soul. So you want to live your life through your passion. So Jean-Paul Sartre goes to a coffee shop and sees two 90-year-olds, a man and a woman, husband and a wife, sitting, and they're drinking coffee and they're reading their newspapers. They're not looking at each other. They're not talking to each other. And Sartre says, well, what sort of relationship is this? It sucks. But then he says, at their age, should they act like a 20-year-old? Holding each other's hands, going to the back seat of a truck, and making love. Can a 90-year-old body withstand the pressure of lovemaking at the age of 90? Is it possible? The answer is no, they'll probably die. So what should a 90-year-old do? Exactly what they're doing. When you've lived with someone for 50 years, you don't want to ask, so has this been worth it? You don't approach your companion with those questions. You basically can't. It takes too much energy, too much effort, and you kind of don't even ask those questions. You kind of just say, I'm just glad I have someone to go to Kaiser with. And I think, when you kind of look at someone who is 60, 70, 80, you know how difficult it is to make them miserable about their life being a rerun for the past 50 years? We don't do that. But then you see a 20-year-old whose name happens to be Toby Maguire. And he comes to class every day and he says, I have a friend who reads books on philosophy. I was talking to my father about Jesus Christ and the concept of suffering. I don't know if I should major in philosophy, religious studies, or go and fight fire somewhere. I said, whoa, this is a man who lives in conflict. I have found my victim. I have found the prey. And now I go on full force attack. And I begin to make you doubt even more. And in some ways, I suppose your question, without you mentioning it, has put me on the stand, saying, Amir, why did you study philosophy? From what little I know about philosophy and the art of reflection and thinking and all that stuff, happy people don't think. People who have found meaning in their lives and they have found meaning in their intimate relationships, they're fine and satisfied and quite content. So what the hell was wrong with you? Especially as an immigrant from the Middle East, most of whom major in either becoming a doctor or an engineer, or a drug dealer. Why did you go into philosophy? You come from a third world. You guys struggle financially. You have all the theology and philosophy and religion in your culture. Why come to America and do philosophy? It's a great, great, great question. And it's basically a question that checkmates me. And what I will tell you is, I was condemned in several ways. from a very, very young age, I don't really know why, I just would cut school at the age of 6, go sit in dumpsters for like 5, 10 hours. Why, how, when? I don't really know why the hell, what the hell was wrong with me. I was also cursed by being wired as an introvert, which is, there's a battlefield inside me. I don't know why it comes about. I don't know why it's there. All I know is just is there. And then I was also very confused about what I want to do in my life. I cut school, I dropped out. And so you say, Amir, let's just cut it short. You're saying you were just miserable from the moment of birth, right? Yeah, I was. So that's why you went to the philosophy, because you thought that philosophy is going to give you answers to your meaninglessness, to your irrelevancy, to your confusion. So, yeah, I guess so, Toby. That's very insightful. Yeah, I didn't know that. I guess, yeah, that's why I went to philosophy. So you were miserable. Yeah, I guess so. Are you any better now? No, not really. What I have been doing now for the past 30 years in the classroom is I have been articulating my misery philosophically. And it sounds exotic, doesn't it? Yeah, it sounds really, really exotic. So deep down you're still miserable, but you just express it well. You don't cry, you don't scream, you don't fight, you don't do drugs, you don't watch porn, you don't drink alcohol, you don't go out. You're just gonna just sit, read books, and talk about things that make you miserable. Yeah, that's exactly it. So are you telling me that for the past 16 weeks of this class, you've been trying to express how miserable you are in a philosophical way to us young kids? Yeah. Don't you worry about contaminating us? Yeah. Well, if you were to contaminate and break us, wouldn't that make us miserable? Yeah. Well, then wouldn't that make us your friends in misery? Yeah. Wouldn't that then bring you out of loneliness and miserableness? Yeah. Are you telling me that you have been exploiting us for the past 16 weeks? Capitalists exploit you in this way, communists exploit you in that way, and you in this class have been exploiting through your misery. Is it true? Yeah. I'm guilty. And that's how it is. Now, the truth, though, is, Toby, I think all of us, without exception, are trying to advertise who and what we are to people out there, hoping that someone will bite. And once they have bitten, once they have fallen into our trap, we'll spend enough time with them so that they can create a friendship. And if there is enough attraction, that friendship can turn into a romantic friendship. And that romantic relationship will hopefully translate into a marriage and hopefully children. That's what it is. I mean, right now you have lots of friends because you're not really at a place where you want to advertise monogamy, that you want to just focus your attention on one path in life and one human being who can be your company. With whom hopefully you'll kind of create a family. You're not there yet. So right now you're spread out. Maybe spread out too thinly, but you're spread out nevertheless. There will come a moment in your life, whether it happens through a tragedy or through psychological evolution and maturity, where you say, I go to work from 9 to 5, I come, I'm exhausted. I don't want to hang out with my friends who drink all the time, or who smoke all the time, or who just say nasty jokes all the time. I'm too tired for that. I want something a bit more meaningful. And I really think that one of the problems with being a human being is that we're all condemned to our own psychological evolution. That there comes a point where you just can't have sex, casual sex. I don't really know why or how. You know, there are lots of theories out there. All I know is that they just, all of a sudden, you know, it's like it attacks you. From nowhere, you're feeling guilty for engaging in this physical activity. And you kind of feel ashamed. And it's not that you're going to go all of a sudden cold turkey and no longer engage in it. It's just that every time you go in it now, you're feeling more and more guilty. It's like you're disrespecting yourself. How it happens, why it happens, sure, it has some external influences. But in some ways, I think it's really internal. You know, it's like people saying, act your age. You know, it's kind of like at my age, for example, I don't know why it happened. All of a sudden, I just realized I can no longer carry 80-pound bags of concrete. So now when I go to Home Depot, I just get 60 pounds. You know, it doesn't save you money, it doesn't save you energy, because it would benefit you more if you were to do 80 pounds. But at my age, I just can't lift them anymore. So I think this idea of discontent, though it has its roots in some external factors, such as the presence of Plato, such as the presence of Karl Marx, such as, for example, you being stopped by a cop, even though everything about your car is fine, your license is not expired, you haven't really driven fast, you're keeping up with the law, he just pulls you over. Maybe he's bored. Maybe he just stopped someone and that person assaulted him verbally. Maybe he had a fight with his wife. Maybe his father is dying. Who the hell knows? It's kind of like the movie Crash. I don't know if you've seen the movie. If you haven't, see the movie because it's really, really a great movie. That life just gives you an event that is unjust and unfair, and it forces you to reflect. And that's like a psychological battlefield on the inside. I was driving fine. I got pulled over for no reason. And the guy just tells me to come out. And he cuffs me for no reason. And I shout and scream. And he tells me to keep my mouth shut. Whatever I say will be held against me. You know, and then you end up, you know, staying a couple nights in the cell. And you're forced to think. And your life is forever changed. You know, we are condemned to think, forced to think. And you could also be condemned by having bad friends around you who say to you, instead of thinking and reflecting, here's a bottle of alcohol. You know, drink the reflection away. Smoke the reflection away. Think that this injustice never happened to you. But I think you can kind of forget about them for only a short while. They're going to come back. I mean, those of us who have been in long-term relationships, Paul and I, will tell you, you know, you will have disagreements with your companion, and they're going to stay inside you for a long, long, long time. You can sex them away, you can dinner them away, you can movie them away for a short while, but they will stay inside you. They will force you to ask, why am I with this person? Why don't I just confront him or her? Why can't we just sit and talk about this stuff? It's not going to go away. You can't push the realities of life away. And I think Jesus, in some ways, you know, like Plato and Karl Marx, they have a point. You know, there are certain facts of life. The Romans are cruel. You know, they're butchering the Jews. They're taxing them. They're destroying their livelihoods. And you don't have the military power to stand up to them. So what do? Jesus offers them a solution. You know, since you can't fight them physically, fight them spiritually. Let's say you want to be a professor later on in your life. And you've been coming to this classroom for the past 15 weeks. And let's just say there is something about it that says, I just don't like Amir Sabzavari. But you've taken a different path, which is unlike other people who drop the class. You say, I'm going to do the work. And I'm going to pay attention to the way he speaks, to his body language, to his mannerism. I want to pay attention and take notes on everything. Why? Because I never want to turn out to be like him. You want to be the exact opposite of me. You can't change me, Toby. I'm not saying this out of arrogance. You can't change me because this is my routine. I've been doing this for 30 years. I'm an old dog who can't change his or her habits. It's too late for me. This is just the way I am. You know? And that's what Jesus offers them. That's what Plato offers people. Another perspective as to how you can perceive yourself, perceive life, perceive politics, perceive society. And I think it's great. You know, when you go to In-N-Out, the truth is you only have 3 options. Meal number 1, 2, or 3. If on the other hand you go somewhere like Costco, even though it's a bad analogy, or somewhere like Barney's, you have 50 or 60 or 100 options. And having more options means you have more windows in your house. You know, you open one window and you look out there and you see a wall of concrete. You open another window, you see a wall of flowers. Another option, you open another window, you see the ocean, you see the forest. And it's great to be able to have all those options.